His goal was to give away his fortune and die penniless. Scotland-born, he had to borrow money to come to the United States. He went from rags to riches through hard work and dedication. He went from working in a small factory job to owning his own iron and steel business, which he sold for $500 million. In the 1800s, that's an exuberant amount of money. Andrew Carnegie spent the rest of his life dedicated to building up his community. I believe Andrew had a heart for philanthropy very early on and wanted to use his talents to help people. I know that feeling, to want to help, to want to make a change. He started charitable institutions and foundations for advanced education, wounded veterans, and opened nearly 3,000 libraries. He was on a mission to change the way Americans use their fortunes. In order to spread the word of his mission, he wrote newspaper articles, gave speeches and interviews. He did not simply believe in helping those who would not help themselves. He did not just give away his fortune. He showed people how to use it to sustain these foundations. It was a very important factor to his success. He built these foundations, taught people to rise up, and the libraries he built were so important in a time where people didn't have regular access to books. Advanced education was for the upper class only, and your average worker, they did good to maintain their schools. Andrew Carnegie's name bears many institutions and foundations. One foundation changed medical education forever. The Foundation for Advancement of Teaching published the Flexner Report, which called on all medical schools to increase their enrollment and their standards of learning. The next biggest thing he did was the Carnegie Corporation, the first and largest grant-making corporation in the United States. It enabled more people to go to school, start businesses of their own in this booming economy. Carnegie Technical Schools taught your average skills that you need to succeed in the job market. There's a Carnegie Hero Commission, and they recognized and rewarded people who gave life or limb in aid of others. Andrew Carnegie became a celebrity for his wealth and his work. He associated with the most influential people in the world. Carnegie noticed the gap between the employer and the employee. He started a movement, called out to his friends, to produce the most beneficial results for the community. This reduced the resentment that the average worker had against the wealthy. I believe we still see this gap today, and our global market has impacted our middle class negatively. Unfortunately, we do not see enough philanthropy, such as what Carnegie produced in the 1800s. He knew building up the community was the only way to alter the friction between employer and employee. Money and power require discipline and a great responsibility to your community. Bill Gates has followed many of Carnegie's traditions. When starting his foundations, he's involved, and he uses his expertise to teach others. Carnegie was a master at working the open market. He attested a lot of his success to the economic system, and I believe he wanted to see more people using the system to live the American dream. Andrew made that possible, but in the 21st century, I don't believe that our wealthy want to teach their success. That would create competition, and they're much more profitable in a controlled market. Andrew Carnegie seen the world differently. If we could see the world through Andrew Carnegie's eyes, maybe we wouldn't see the poverty and the homeless rate we see today. We wouldn't see the wealthy 1% running our governments or controlling our economy. You know, he tried to encourage his peers, mostly politicians, to settle their international matters peacefully. This was one area he failed. When World War I began, Andrew Carnegie removed himself from the public stage completely. His famous influence couldn't change the fact that peace was not the resolution to our conflicts. World War I drained the economy, and the Great Depression followed soon after. World War I ended, Andrew Carnegie died, and it was believed that he had given away over $350 million in his lifetime. He left behind him a great legacy, or a gospel, as some would call it. Philanthropy and charity work would never be the same. People would remember him for decades to come. In one of Andrew's famous essays, he warned his wealthy peers, "The day is not far distant when the man who dies leaving behind him available wealth, which was free for him to administer during his life, will pass away unwept, unhonored, and unsung." He also stated, "The public verdict will then be, the man who dies thus rich dies disgraced." I believe Carnegie's vision came from a humble soul, building himself up. He wasn't born in a wealthy family. He was born in poverty. But he persevered through hard times and the struggles. And he learned to live on less. He had a true understanding of this. Andrew Carnegie knew that if he could change his life, he could change the lives of others. He knew what needed to be created because at some point in his journey he thought, if this opportunity had been available, it could have changed everything. His work did change everything, and therefore we will always continue to remember him.